is David Shale Creek, and one of the things when we tour people around the property, and not everything's perfect here always, so if you see something in the back, just ignore it. I get a lot of questions about the types of trees to raise and grow, and commonly, people are always mentioning the things that they enjoy the most. And one of the things that is most often comes up, at least here in East Tennessee, is what's behind me, and what's behind me is peach. So peaches are very difficult to raise and grow. They're not easy. They are not for the amateur, especially if you're doing backyard gardening. When you have a farm that is 100 acres or even 20 acres and you have a monoculture going, nice clean cut grass, no woods around you, and your only tree is just that one tree. Imagine being in the center of a circle of trees. That tree in the center is less likely to be influenced by insects that are coming in or disease that's coming in. So they have a better chance of survival from fungus, from bugs, from things that just drift in. However, they're also spraying at a very specific time for whatever insect is in that area, and they're taking care of those insects all at one time. Exactly every tree is the same. But like what's behind me here, see back on the right there, is pear. And I've got apple trees back in there, and these are all sprayed at different times. So for a backyard gardener, peach can be a very, very difficult tree to raise. It's not fun, it's not for the weak-hearted, and so I usually try to steer new gardeners away from peach, just because it's so difficult when you're surrounded by woods and fungus. And you can see it's a nice cloudy day. It's still cool here. There's really a lot going on as far as the weather goes. It's also very humid, which means a lot of fungus. And in the beginning of spring, now is the time to start spraying for insects. So there's a lot of insecticide that's needed, and that's already happened a couple of times. And that helps keep the bug population down. It's really the adult bugs that do most of the damage, and that's going to be coming in about 2 months. Middle of summer, everything is going into full adult stage, and they really start attacking. So to further describe what's going on here with these peach, I wanted to just show you some particulars if you are going to go into it, and we're going to look at those specifically. And I'll get into that right now. First issue I want to talk about here is thinning. And this year is a pretty phenomenal year for our peach, but nonetheless, most of the time, it's going to be a pretty good year. Peach are pretty prolific. They generate a lot of fruit. And so here's the problem. I'm going to back off here and see how long this branch is. So this got to be a good 12 feet from the trunk to the tip. Now on the tip out here, let's just say I've got 40 peaches and I let them all go to maturity. What would you think would happen if I had a 2-year-old, 40-pound kid grab on the edge of that branch and pull down? Think it'd snap? Yep, it would. So you want to wait a little while, and you're going to let these fruit go. These are about the size of the diameter of a quarter, and you're going to wait for something that we call June drop or fruit drop. Now, if you look on the ground here, you can see some peaches, and those have fallen off the tree naturally. And you'll see this with most varieties of any kind of fruit, is that during a certain time of year, they start to let go. Now, these are fruit that were not pollinated well, that were either hit by an insect, or just the tree itself is saying, hey, I can't handle all this fruit, I'm gonna let some go. Well, obviously there's quite a bit still hanging on, but that's the key that you need to start thinning. So I'll be getting out here pretty soon and getting a ladder and starting to thin this fruit. It's really difficult to do this. It's like getting rid of children or something. I mean, it's awful. And you think, oh, I could get so much more, but I want to describe the problem with not thinning. All right, so like I said, you have a child on here, 40 pounds, boom, you lose a limb. I want you to see this little slit. You see the slit in the middle of the trunk? Well, that was us being stupid and greedy once. Had a nice big limb that was sticking all the way out here. We decided to support it with a 2x4, thinking, hey, that's going to work just fine. And if you can see this little aisleway that goes all the way down here, this is the direction the wind comes. hits that branch on the side, 2x4 rolls over, and all that weight snapped the limb off. Now think of all the years that I've lost fruit now, because I could have had 4 on the central leader system, and I would have been getting another 30 or 40 pieces of fruit, depending on the size of branch I let it be. So I lost quite a bit just by being greedy. So you got to look at the long term of things. That is what you need to do. You need to thin. How to thin? So there was once a lady who said, "Oh, I just thin every fruit that points up." And I thought that was kind of silly initially, and I think I've talked about this before. But if you were to take off every fruit that points up, basically it leaves you with about a fruit every 4 to 6 inches. And that's about what you want. So I've got so many fruit on here, I'm going to be spending hours taking off fruit from this tree. And it's all going to be hitting the ground. And that's where a lot of these small stones come from, is just most of these fruit right now are just stones in the middle. And that's what it is to thinning. You know, pick them off as gently as you can without damaging the tree, leave the rest, and away you go. The next issue with raising peaches are a few insects, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. So along the eastern seaboard, most of the eastern United States, there is a particularly small insect which you'll almost never see. In 14 years I still haven't even seen one. The only pictures I've seen are on Google. It's called plum curculio. Plum curculio is all over, and it's a massive, massive issue for fruit growers on the eastern seaboard. And what it does is, as your trees are all nicely flowering, that plum curculio is out as an adult, and it comes out and it looks at your flowers and your trees, and sometime during that point it'll sting it or some of the developing fruit and tries to lay an egg in there. And that egg will start to grow, forms a larva in the middle, and that's where you get a lot of maggots that come out of your fruit. Terrible shame, terrible waste. Problem with what's going on during that entire time is that it's drilled a little tiny hole in it. Once peach are damaged, even just slightly, it now becomes an infestation point for brown rot. So you're never going to get a piece of fruit that's going to be any decent to eat if it's been stung. I haven't found any here, and that's good. There are a couple pieces around, I'm sure, where it's been stung, and you can see it. It'll be a little half moon or something that looks like that, or just a little pinhole, and the fruit as it's growing, starts to deform. To get around this, in our area, at about 75% petal fall, and what that means is that as 75% of the total flowers, the petals have fallen, that's the time that you're going to spray with your first round of insecticide and a fungicide at the same time. So something like 7 will work really good for you. You can use bifenthrin. Asphyl valerate is another one that's new and been released for this type of work. And you'll spray the entire tree, flowers and everything. Now, some of these can kill bees. That's why we wait until as much of the petals as we can tolerate fall. You spray the tree, and 2 weeks later, on the nose, you spray again. What that does is it disrupts the life cycle of the plum curculio. Now, at the same time, there is another bug, 2 of them. They're called borers. The first one is called a lesser borer beetle. The lesser borer beetles actually will go along the top part of the tree, above 3 to 4 feet, and they start to drill into the branch. And I know I have a few of them, so if I come across one, I'll show it to you. It'll just ooze a little bit of sap as it's been stung. Okay, here's one here. So this borer beetle, what it does is it goes in, the larva will enter in and stays on that cambium layer, which is the living layer in between, and starts to eat it. And basically, it can kill entire branches. And I do have that issue here, and that is helped by good continuous spraying. The other one is called a major borer, which is attacks on the trunk. And what we do is we spray Roundup along the base of the trees. Roundup won't hurt the trees. And you can see all of our bases have been sprayed. It kills everything around. And by removing all that live vegetation, it takes away a home for these borer beetles. So we want to clear all this out. We want to keep it clean. And now if you can see the trunk, here's another deterrent for you. Along the trunk, you'll see what's the residue of white paint. We actually use a whitewash formula that's about 3 pounds of a quicklime, which is the powdered white lime, 2 pounds of salt, and then we add enough water in there to make like a thin pancake batter, and then we paint that on the tree about 3 feet, which is about where the top of the frame is showing here. We found this much more effective than using pesticides, a different kind of pesticide, a chemical pesticide, than using this, because that lime is a very high pH, it's very alkaline and deters those bugs. The salt they don't like because it's a dehydrating agent. And the white color seems to, it's not as attractive to the adult borers that are laying these eggs. And then of course, like I said, clearing out all vegetation. So we don't use mulch on any of our peach trees, never. And that's about it for major insects. Peaches seem to do pretty good with Japanese beetles. I mean, they'll eat a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And when you start to see a lot of beetles when it's starting to mature and they're starting to attack your fruit, go ahead and strip your tree. That'd be about the right time. They should all be ripe and you'd be good to go. The last issue to talk about here is going to be fungus. Fungus is a big issue here in East Tennessee. Fungus basically destroys quite a bit of the crop. It makes it less desirable to look at, but mainly the biggest issue is going to be destruction of the fruit. This happens to be a white peach when we're done, and this is particularly prone to fungus, and it's a very difficult one to grow for us, much more difficult than even standard peach. Because of that low acidity, the fungus just love it. Brown rot is probably the biggest thing that tears apart our peaches, most of our peaches, and like I said about the plum curculio, just the slightest little blemish from an outside source, that brown rot gets into this particular peach and just destroys it. So how do we counter that? We counter that by spraying every 2 weeks. So from the time you first started spraying all those insecticides we were talking about, you're going to maintain a 2-week schedule every 2 weeks on a calendar, and you've got to be diligent about doing this, especially here in East Tennessee. Right now it's raining, humidity is very high. This is the perfect time for that to happen. So you're going to be spraying every 2 weeks. You want to try to rotate your fungicides. So there are fungicides that I can offer for you. We tend to spray a lot of different things here, but you can look these up yourself. We look at a fungicide called Eagle, Topsin, Sovereign, Rally, and Captain. You can even spray sulfur. So it all depends if you're trying to go organic or not as to what you're going to spray. And hit those up every 2 weeks. Now, I want you to read the labels on those products, because some of those products, you're going to make sure that you're wearing a proper PPE, which is probably a respirator. That's going to be your biggest exposure, is making sure that you're wearing a respirator. Your lungs, because it could spray back on you. So spraying early in the morning prevents the particulates, the spray, the overspray from hitting you. And you'll need to just protect yourself. Some of them are completely harmless. They don't do anything. So you make sure you read the safety precautions on those. You also want to be looking for something called PHI, which is pre-harvest interval. There is a duration, a lifespan of fungicides, and that can be up to 2 weeks depending on the product. Usually they're shorter lived than that. And so if I was going to harvest September 1st, well, I want to make sure that 2 weeks before September 1st, if it had a PHI of 14, 2 weeks ahead of time is to not, that would be my last spraying period. So you want to give the sun time to destroy it, ozone, rain, whatever it might be, for that fungicide to wash off. The last other little bit here, you've noticed I've got some things that are dead, would be to look at spraying during the winter time. Spraying during the winter time, we've had problems here with something called scale. Scale is a little insect that basically sucks the life out of things. It is so small it almost looks, it can look like a little polka dot on the tree, to making the tree look like granite, and it basically sucks the life out of the limb and can kill it, like this has happened. And I've had this problem. So how do you compensate for that is during the winter, when all the leaves have just fallen off in fall, you spray once with a copper solution, and also the same time with a horticultural oil. That horticultural oil strangles those little tiny insects. The oil encapsulates it, and then it can't breathe and it dies. Then you want to spray again midwinter, and then just before bud break. So you've got 3 different times that you can possibly spray. So once again, this is David from Shale Creek. I hope this has been somewhat informative as to why the title of the video. And it's not like I like discouraging people to do things and try things. And I know that peach are so high on people's list for a fruit that they really want to grow on their own. It's just an exceptionally difficult fruit in my climate here. And maybe it's easier in yours. There's less pest pressure perhaps in yours. But I want you to be careful and think about the things that I've said here. It's quite a bit of work. It is quite a bit of work. Overall, I think we've got only 10 trees. Of those 10 trees last year, 5 of them produced very well. I think we sold something like 450 pounds of peaches off of those trees, and plus we got additional canning. When you raise a tree like these and you're doing it right, don't be put off by your yields. About 40% are picture perfect. About another 20 to 30% are going to be less than perfect. It's something that you're going to take and you're going to can or make jams and jellies out of, preserves, something like that. And then the rest is going to be taken by other insects, by birds pecking at it, by squirrel. Squirrel love these things. If you've got squirrel, you've got to manage that problem. Sometimes even deer don't really hurt them all that much, but you may get other pests, rodents, and things that can come into your trees. So that's about the last words of advice I've got on peaches. I know there's a lot more. I didn't get into pruning on purpose here because that's a whole other topic. But I'm hoping again that you make this the best you can. Take care. David from Shale Creek.